There is a particular kind of magic that settles over the world in October. The air grows crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and decaying leaves. Darkness arrives earlier each day, pulling a deep, velvety cloak over our streets, and in that growing dark, they begin to appear. One by one, they flicker to life on doorsteps and in windows, the glowing, grinning faces of carved pumpkins. It's a sight so ingrained in our collective memory that it feels almost timeless, a comforting beacon in the encroaching autumn gloom. We see them as cheerful, whimsical decorations, a symbol of harvest, of community, of the playful spookiness of Halloween. But traditions, especially the oldest ones, often have deeper, darker roots. And the simple act of hollowing out a gourd and placing a flame inside is an echo of a much more sinister story. It is a ritual born not of celebration, but of fear. A ritual intended to ward off a restless, cursed soul, doomed to wander the earth forever, with only a single burning coal from hell to light his way. This is the story of that soul, the story of Jack O'Lantern. Our story begins, as so many cautionary tales do, in a dimly lit tavern, nestled somewhere in the misty hills of Old Ireland, and at its center is a man known to all as Stingy Jack. He was not a good man. By every account, Jack was a drunkard, a trickster, and a manipulator of the highest order, known throughout the land for his silver tongue and his profoundly miserly nature. He could talk a friend out of his last coin and feel no remorse for it. One fateful night, as Jack sat nursing a drink, he found himself in the company of a dark stranger. This was no ordinary man. It was the devil himself, coming to finally claim Jack's wicked soul. But Jack, ever the con man, was not ready to go. Thinking quickly, he challenged the devil to one last drink, claiming he wanted to repent by treating Satan to a final ale before his damnation. When the time came to pay, however, Jack feigned poverty, complaining that he had no money. With a sly grin, he convinced the devil to use his shape-shifting powers to turn himself into a silver coin, which Jack could use to pay the tavern keeper. Once the deed was done, the devil could change back, and they could be on their way. Intrigued by the audacity of the request, the devil agreed. But the moment the silver coin lay in Jack's hand, he didn't place it on the bar. Instead, he quickly slipped it into his pocket, right next to a small silver crucifix he always carried. The sacred object stripped the devil of his powers, trapping him in the form of the coin. Jack had him. He refused to free the devil until Satan promised not to bother him for another full year, and swore that when Jack did eventually die, the devil would not claim his soul. Trapped and furious, the devil had no choice but to agree. A year passed, and true to his word, the devil left Jack alone. But time has a way of running out for everyone. The devil reappeared, this time finding Jack on a country road. Jack knew his time was truly up, but his cunning mind saw one last opportunity. He agreed to go, but asked for a final request: a single apple from a nearby tree to soothe his hunger on the long journey to hell. Wanting to get the ordeal over with, the devil obliged and climbed the tree to fetch the finest apple. But as he reached for it, Jack moved with lightning speed, carving crosses into the bark of the tree's trunk, all the way around. Once again, the devil was trapped, unable to climb down past the holy symbols. Jack, now holding all the power, made his final fatal bargain. He would only let the devil down if he swore an oath, for all of eternity, to never ever claim his soul. Seething with rage but utterly defeated, the devil gave his unbreakable word. Jack, laughing, removed the crosses and watched the devil vanish, convinced he had outsmarted death itself. Years later, after a long life of sin and selfishness, Stingy Jack finally died. But his soul, stained by a lifetime of wickedness, was immediately turned away from the gates of heaven. With nowhere else to go, he descended to the gates of hell, expecting to be let in. The devil, still bitter from his humiliation, stood waiting. He gleefully upheld his end of the bargain. He had sworn an oath never to take Jack's soul, and he would not break it. Jack was now barred from heaven and from hell, cursed to wander in the eternal, empty darkness between worlds. He pleaded for some light, anything to guide his way through the suffocating blackness. Taking a small measure of pity, or perhaps as a final, mocking gesture, the devil tossed him a single, ever-burning ember from the fires of hell itself. To carry the flame, Jack did what he had always done. He took what was available. He found a turnip growing in a field, hollowed it out, and placed the burning coal inside. And so his punishment began. Forever wandering the earth, with no final resting place, known only as Jack-o'-lantern. This haunting story of a damned soul and his makeshift lantern became a cornerstone of Irish folklore. To protect themselves from Jack and other wandering spirits, people began to carve their own lanterns. They would take turnips, potatoes, or large beets, hollow them out, and carve grotesque faces into them. Faces designed to frighten away the evil spirits that roamed on All Hallows' Eve. They would place these grim effigies in their windows and on their doorsteps, not as a celebration, but as a form of spiritual protection. A warning to the lost souls of the night: you are not welcome here. But Jack's lonely flame isn't the only light that has flickered in the dark places of the world. His story, in many ways, was a narrative built to explain a phenomenon that has terrified humanity for centuries, long before his tale was ever told. People spoke of other phantom lights, eerie glows that danced over bogs, fens, and marshlands, luring the unwary to their doom. They have been called by many names. In Latin, ignis fatuus, or foolish fire. In England, they were known as corpse candles, believed to be omens of death, lighting the path from a home to the graveyard just before a tragedy. They were called hobby lanterns, or pucks, seen as the work of mischievous fairies who took pleasure in leading travelers astray. Imagine it. You are lost, walking through a desolate marsh at night. The air is cold and damp, and a thick fog clings to the ground, swallowing all sound. You are beginning to lose hope. And then in the distance you see it. A soft, gentle light, like a lantern held by a fellow traveler. A wave of relief washes over you. You call out, but there's no reply. The light just bobs and sways, beckoning you forward. You follow it, desperate for salvation, for the warmth of a hearth and the safety of four walls. But the light leads you deeper into the treacherous terrain, over sucking mud and into deep, murky pools of water, until you are hopelessly lost, or worse. The hopeful light was never a guide. It was a trap. Science today offers a more sober explanation for these mysterious lights: the spontaneous combustion of methane and other gases released by decaying organic matter in swamps. A beautiful, eerie phenomenon of natural chemistry. And yet, for those who have seen them, standing alone in the profound silence of a darkened wilderness, the feeling is not one of scientific curiosity. It is an ancient, primal fear. The feeling that you are not alone, and that the light in the distance is not a promise of safety, but a lure from something that wishes you harm. The will-o'-the-wisp is the embodiment of deceptive hope, a light in the darkness that leads only to more darkness. This deep-seated fear of phantom lights and wandering souls traveled across the Atlantic Ocean in the hearts and minds of the millions of Irish immigrants who fled to America during the Great Famine of the 1840s. They brought with them their stories, their beliefs, and their traditions, including the protective ritual of carving lanterns to ward off spirits like Stingy Jack on All Hallows' Eve. But in this new land, they found that turnips were not nearly as common or as large as they were back home. They did, however, discover a new kind of gourd, native to North America. It was large, round, vibrant orange, and much, much easier to carve. It was the pumpkin. And so, the tradition adapted. The Irish turnip gave way to the American pumpkin, but the purpose remained the same. The grotesque faces carved into their flesh were still meant to be terrifying, to scare away the malevolent forces of the night. Over time, as the old fears faded and the festival of Halloween became more about candy and costumes than about communion with the dead, the faces on the pumpkins softened. The terrifying grimaces became cheerful grins. The protective wards became festive decorations. The sinister origin story was largely forgotten, buried beneath layers of commercialization and nostalgia, but it never truly went away. The old magic, the ancient fear, still lingers just beneath the surface. So the next time you walk down a quiet street on a cool October evening and see those warm, flickering faces smiling at you from the shadows, take a moment. Look past the cheerful grin and see the echo of what it once was. A hollowed-out vessel, just like Jack's turnip. A captured flame, just like the ember from hell's fire. A guardian, carved to frighten away a damned and wandering soul. And as you place your own lantern on your doorstep, lighting a candle to ward off the encroaching dark, ask yourself, what ancient spirits are you really trying to keep at bay? And what or who are you truly inviting in?